I wanted to go into the crux of the matter, that your long journey as a journalist and especially as a Pakistani woman.
I was educated at a boarding school in England, then onwards to Cambridge University, where I read law. I was very, very rooted. My brother and sister, my siblings are also very rooted in their culture.
My take will be this, that it is a loss to Pakistan that somebody like Imran Khan's stature.
Don't forget, Dr. Saab, that it was this very military establishment that brought him to power in 2018.
Hello and very warm welcome from a sunny afternoon from our London studios. I'm Sohail Qureshi with my program Sharp Edge, and today we have a very illustrious guest from Pakistan, a very famous personality, woman of a particular heritage, amazingly talented, a world-renowned journalist, philanthropist, activist, and politician, Jugnu Mohsin, who doesn't need any introduction. So without any further ado, very warm welcome to you, Jugnu. Thank you very much for gracing us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. It's very kind of you to invite me to your studios and to give me an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I'm doubly appreciating it that it was a very impromptu interview. We didn't really give you enough time to, and I'm glad that you're here. So without any further ado, as I said, I wanted to go into the crux of the matter, that your long journey as a journalist and especially as a Pakistani woman in about 20, 30 years ago. How do you find this journey, and especially your education? You were probably London educated, is that right?
I was educated at a boarding school in England. I spent 2 years doing my A-levels at a boarding school from 16 to 18, and then onwards to Cambridge University, where I read law. Then I came to the bar here, to Gray's Inn, and after having spent 7 or 8 very formative years in the United Kingdom, I went back to Pakistan, and that's when I began my career in journalism. Having qualified as a lawyer, unfortunately, those were the dark days of General Ziaul Haq's martial law, and there was no law to speak of. And I was interested in constitutional law, and he had abrogated the constitution. So therefore, I thought it would be better to begin my activism by joining the Women's Action Forum, which was a rights group formed specially to combat General Ziaul Haq's retrogressive laws against women, the status of women, and to strive for greater gender parity in Pakistan. And then to do journalism for the kind of participation that I wanted in national life. So I tried to combine both, my desire for activism and participation.
Oh, excellent. So you were a lawyer turned into a journalist. So
Correct.
You didn't have a formal education in journalism, but I have been watching you. You're very articulate and very upfront. So
I learned on the job, Dr. Saab.
Okay, excellent. So that's
I learned per force on the job.
Yeah.
I had to learn 10-finger typing back in the day. And I'm talking about the early 90s now. 10-finger typing, you had to do all of that, and then reporting as well, and editing, and then layouts, and everything from start to finish. You know, it was a hands-on kind of job.
You mentioned the one of the darkest days for Pakistani democracy or politics of General Ziaul Haq, a very draconian type from 1977. 5th July, I understand.
Correct.
Onward for almost
August
12 years.
88.
Yeah, 88. 17th of August 1988, with his famous explosion of his C-130. So it had been quite a journey. So how was it being a female journalist, a young person with your hereditary pride? So how was it for you as a person, as a woman?
I'm glad you asked that question. Normally people don't ask that question. It was very difficult. It was very, very difficult, because people don't take women seriously to begin with in our kinds of societies. And whilst there is a kind of respect, if you could call it that, and a kind of facilitation for people of a certain class and background, whether they're men or women, that exists, and that is a discriminatory advantage that we enjoy. That is there. And on the other hand, there is a kind of, as I said, a lack of seriousness, a kind of flippant attitude to women and their work, until you, of course, you prove your mettle, Dr. Saab.
Yeah.
And once you've proved your mettle, then we are a society that does not discriminate. Then that it doesn't matter, it becomes kind of gender neutral then. Whether you're in politics or whether you're in business or you're in journalism, then it becomes gender neutral. But you have to go through a trial by fire,
Yes.
and you have to prove your credentials.
Yes.
That I had to do.
Yes.
That I had to do.
Yeah, I noticed that twice you used the word that women are not taken seriously, especially at that time, and I did absolutely right. And there is a lot of respect, a huge respect for women, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, so much so that the Pakistani men are willing to kill anyone for that honor, including the woman herself.
We don't want them to kill for us.
Yeah,
we just want them to,
Yeah.
give us equality,
Yeah.
and to share, in fact,
Yeah.
equality with us, because we deserve our rights.
Yeah, and it's very condescending that, yes, you basically respect women in that way, but you don't give. I mean, I'm talking about 30, 40 years ago, so things have really changed. And I think for women like you, especially, who not only educated at that time, but also came back from a law which is, again, basically fighting for the causes of a populace to this. But I am also particularly interested with your very highly respected heritage of your family, an ancestral lineage, which is much revered, and probably quite a male-dominated. So that must have been quite a bridge to cross.
Well, again, a very fascinating question. I would credit my late father and my late mother with the encouragement that they gave me. I was their eldest child. I didn't feel discriminated against as a girl child. I did feel, of course, that my brother who followed me, was considered more important from their point of view in terms of their heritage and in terms of what they wished, how they wished their family to continue. But in terms of education, in terms of opportunity, I was never discriminated against. I was given the same opportunity for education and the same opportunity for development that he had. In my father's family, although they came from a long-standing landed background, there was a great value for education. And my father's elders went to schools, the famous Chiefs College or Aitchison College, right from the get-go, from the day that it was founded in 1886 in Lahore. So my father's grandfathers and great-grandfathers were all part of the first class of Aitchisonians in 1886, when there were 16 boys in the class. So there was a premium on education.
Yes.
Whether the women acquired it or the men, the women were also given an opportunity to acquire education. So I was of that lucky generation. Yes. My dadi didn't acquire an education, and I know that she really felt the lack of it, because my grandfather was educated. I mean, I remember him sitting in the veranda of his Haveli, reading Pickwick Papers, or reading Great Expectations by Dickens, or reading Shakespeare, Hamlet, and declaiming from it, and laughing whilst reading Dickens. And she was within the Haveli, and she would feel left out. So my father recalled that, and he remembered that, and he said that when I have daughters, I will give them the best opportunities that I can. So he felt it very keenly. And he gave me and my sister the best opportunities. We both went to school in England. We both went to universities. Both of us went to Cambridge University. My father too had been to Cambridge University. And in fact, my grandfather had also been admitted to Trinity College, Cambridge.
Wow.
But there was a premium on education. So therefore, we had that great start. But I decided to go back to Pakistan once I had graduated. And I chose not to stay here. And I wanted to make a contribution to the land of my birth. At that time, there was a lot of hope, Dr. Saab. There was hope. The late Benazir Bhutto was in the shadows waiting to come to power. And we knew that she was an educated woman. She was, a kind of progressive lady. So I, as a young woman, had a lot of hope in her. But then, sadly, when she did came to power, it was so diluted. Yes. And once again, the very forces that today deny Pakistan, Pakistanis their democratic rights, were at work back then as well. And so Benazir was denied the majority that she actually won in 1988. And that was my first experience with elections. Before that, my uncles and my cousins had participated in elections.
And also the interface with the deep state.
Well, this is the first time that one saw it happening, in real time. And you got a kind of, what shall I say, a very hard and very brutal lesson in the realities of Pakistani politics. And there onwards, it has been one disaster after another. And while we've tried to stay the course, my husband Najam Sethi and I tried to stay the course in journalism, in public life, in contributing in whatever way we can. And then with my philanthropic work, which I inherited from my parents back in the day, about 16, 17 years ago. As they aged, they said, you have to come and take over the philanthropic work that we do here in education, health, in free soup kitchens and craft centers, etc. They started with health and education, but I increased it to free food and more health camps and craft centers, etc. So I went into that about 16, 17 years ago, besides my journalism. So I continued with journalism, and as the children went off to school and college, etc., abroad, so I had more time, so I did that. But, it's been what shall I say, a tragic time at the same time in Pakistan. Whilst some things have changed for the better, I would imagine that in most cases, we have not made the progress that we could have made.
Yeah, you're right. As Sana said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'll just kind of close off that particular period of your life where you were a ray of hope for Pakistani women in probably late 70s and 80s in particular.
Well, I began my career in the late 80s.
Late 80s,
so
yeah.
I was active in the 90s, the 2000s, right up to now.
Yeah. No, but in terms of your educational
education,
journey at that time,
my
going to
education
Cambridge,
was in the 70s and 80s, yes.
So your three-generation Cambridge heritage really brought these lovely fruits of enlightening the women of the household, which is you. And that is very difficult to decipher when probably the literacy rate was only 25-30% at that time in general, and for women even it was far less. So that's very well said and done. So we'll go to your political career at the end of the interview, but I am very much interested in your philanthropic work, and there's a lot of that has been written. I come across that personally, and so just tell us about that. So what are you exactly doing?
Well, it's interesting that you spoke about women's empowerment, and the basic building block of women's empowerment is education.
Yes.
So that my late father and my late mother did by setting up a trust in our ancestral village. My ancestral village is a very ancient place. It's built on a mound. And as you know, in the subcontinent, when things are built on mounds, there are probably other civilizations beneath them.
That's right.
It's a matter of excavation, and we haven't yet got the resources to do that. But my ancestors journeyed from southern Iran in Kerman in the late 1400s, and they came to the subcontinent. And then in the early 1500s, our ancestor, whose name was Sheikh Daud, and he belonged to the Qadiri sect of Sufis, he established his hujra at Shergarh, which is in the district of Okada, from which I hail. And it's very interesting, Dr. Saab, but he was a man who taught by example. He worked with his hands. He gave away whatever he made, and he taught by examples, and he brought the people of the surrounding tribes, the pastoralists, the agriculturists who lived around that area, and shared the message of Islam with them very peacefully. And as you know, at that time, proselytizers were not kind of hard people who lived by the sword. It was not that. They taught by example. They lived a peaceful life. They tried to teach harmony, coexistence. And I think one of the reasons that Islam succeeded in part in the subcontinent was its message of equality, because people were oppressed by the caste system.
Yes.
So they sought a refuge, and they sought a kind of, a kind of out from the caste system, and
So
they
the
came to
preaching
Islam.
was mainly because of the character, because of the example.
Obviously, if you
Yes.
set a good example and you lived an exemplary life, people would be drawn to you and drawn to your message. So he did. Many Sufi Karam who came to the subcontinent did that. They lived. They taught by example, and they also taught the very attractive lesson of equality, which is why people then came to them
They
voluntarily.
followed. As Hazrat Ali alayhi salam had said, nobody has to preach anybody towards Islam. Your character itself should show, and that is where the spirituality in your heritage comes.
And I just want to mention here that Mullah Badayuni, who was the court historian of Akbar the Great,
Yes.
visited Hazrat Daud in Shergarh. After Akbar came to the throne, you know that he ascended the throne of the Mughal throne in around
1552, I think.
1530. Sorry, 1552, quite right.
For about
Around that.
49 years. Yeah.
Yes, he was on the throne for half a century
Yeah.
after his father Humayun died. Yes. So in the latter half of the 16th century, 1550 onwards, you know that Akbar wanted to set up Deen-e-Ilahi,
Yes.
which he thought would be a kind of rallying point for all of the
Combination
subcontinents.
of all the subcontinental religions. Right?
Quite right. So then Mullah Badayuni, who was not of Akbar's mind, however, Akbar was large-hearted enough to have him in his court as one of his Nauratans, as one of his
That's right,
advisors.
yes.
So he sent Mullah Badayuni to various Sufis and proselytizers across the subcontinent to ask them to come to Fatehpur Sikri to confer with the emperor and to give them their views on his project. So one of the people he visited was Hazrat Sheikh Daud at Shergarh, my ancestor. And Sheikh Daud had parleys with Mullah Badayuni, and Mullah Badayuni records this in Tarikh-e-Hind, the tomb that he's written of an account of Akbar's reign. And he says in that Hazrat Daud Bandagi refused to go to Fatehpur Sikri because he said that what the emperor is considering doing is dilution of the message. And I don't agree with it. And I am a faqir, i.e. I am a darwesh of the Almighty, and I want to sit in my hujra, and I don't seek grandeur, and I don't belong in his court. So
Amazing.
I would like
What
to
courage.
stay here.
Yeah.
So, and then he stayed in his hujra. Badayuni, was respectful, understood the message, and secretly Badayuni, of course, agreed with it. But he repaired to Fatehpur Sikri and he told the emperor that. And so Hazrat Sheikh Daud Bandagi Kirmani waited for the emperor's invasion and the emperor's forces to come and, finish him off.
To take him, yes. That's
But
right.
then Akbar was Akbar the Great.
Yeah.
That's why he's known as Mughal-e-Azam and Akbar the Great, because he also had a capacity for tolerance.
That's right.
And he let Hazrat Daud be in his hujra, and he continued to. But this is all recorded. So, my father was kind of imbued with that spirit of inquiry, of tolerance.
And truth, yeah.
And truth-seeking.
Yes.
And he and my mother together set up the first girls' school for the village of Shergarh. Now it's now, of course, a town, because people just didn't send their daughters to school.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the late 70s, 1978, etc., more than 50 years ago from today. And so they set up the schools. First, he rebuilt the mosque.
Remarkable achievement at that time in 1978.
So Sher Shah Suri had built a mosque there in Hazrat Daud's honor. He passed away in 1565. And during Akbar's reign, a very beautiful hexagonal Mughal tomb was built for Hazrat Daud Bandagi's remains. and
Near Shakargarh.
in Shergarh.
In Shergarh,
Shergarh.
sorry,
And
yeah.
Fatehpur Sikri, and Sher Shah Suri had earlier garrisoned the town and built a mosque in his honor as well. But this is before Akbar's time.
Yeah.
So the
No,
mosque
yeah.
fell at some stage in my father's childhood. So my father first took the step of repairing the mosque, building it
And
exactly
the
on its
ruins
old
were there.
parameters. The ruins were
I
there.
see. Okay.
So he rebuilt it exactly on its parameters and put in the first girls' school in the mosque, and it became known as the Maktab. That's where it began. And then it spread to about 35 schools after that. And there were thousands of girls. As we speak, there are thousands of girls who are studying in our schools. And many of our graduates, alumni, have gone on to join, multinational businesses. Some have gone abroad. Some have become scientists. And it's a great sense of
That's an
achievement,
amazing
girls
achievement.
and boys.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
had that platform to build on. So I went back basically to help my parents when they entered their 80s with their philanthropic activities. And then as I began to, be there for 2 or 3 days a week and began to do that work, I organically got drawn into the life of the area. And that's how I organically came to politics as well. And I increased the women's participation of the area by setting up craft centers, by setting up free soup kitchens, by sending out health camps to the surrounding areas as well, and drawing women into the health sector and into the education sector.
Oh, this is a remarkable achievement, I must say. And generally, there are about more than 50% population of Pakistan women. And without women emancipation, empowerment, and skilling them up with the education, no nation, and definitely Pakistan, cannot prosper at all and progress. And I'm glad that you are carrying that baton on that started from Hazrat Dawood, your forefather, to now. And I think again, it's really surprising that a young girl in a very formative age, coming to Europe, and pretty much spends about 8 years into the luster of the European life, and still you went back to seek your roots. So your parents and your father must have had a huge impact on you.
Of course, we were very rooted. I was very, very rooted. My brother and sister, my siblings are also very rooted in their culture. And I must say that my maternal family have a lot of credit goes. A lot of credit goes to my maternal family as well. They belong to the old city of Lahore, and they came from the famous Fakir Khana family of Bhati Darwaza, and Fakir Azizuddin, Nuruddin, my mother's ancestors, were advisors to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and they were a very learned family. So when I went to school in Lahore, I was brought up by my grandmother, my mother's mother, and she was a lady who was literate in Farsi, in Urdu, Arabi bhi padhti thi, of course, because she read the Quran, etc.
Because Farsi was Persian was the official language.
It's the court language,
court
yes.
language,
And it
the
was
official
also the
language.
language of the British Raj in the early days. It was
this
the
one,
language of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's court as well.
Yes.
So I remember in my childhood, one of my uncles is Sayyid Babar Ali, who is the founder of Lums University, and he's the chairman of the Packages Group. He's now, mashallah, just a few months shy of his 99th birthday. Long may he continue to inspire us.
Amazing.
And he used to bring to my grandmother, his mother, and my grandmother, every weekend there would be a mehfil in her old house where a ballad singer from Kasur would, for instance, would come and sing the Heer of Waris Shah's famous love poem of Heer and Ranjha. So he would come and regale her with that. Then he would have qawwals to come over, and I remember Manzoor Qawwal and Munshi Raziuddin Qawwal coming regularly to the old house to perform qawwali sessions, mehfil sama, as we call them.
There's another form of spiritual recitation
and
of
then,
beautiful poetry.
Our uncle also encouraged many of the ghazal singers of the time. So I remember growing up on Farida Khanum Sahiba's ghazal, and while she was singing, we would have, poets there, and Sufi Tabassum Saab would be sitting there, and sometimes Faiz Ahmed Faiz Saab would be there as well, and the gentry of Lahore.
Yeah.
And we children were also included very much part of all these cultural activities. We'd go to the melas that took place regularly. One of them was the mela of our ancestor, Urs as it's known.
Yes.
Then we used to go to the Mela Charaga in Lahore. We'd go to Baba Shah Jamal's Mela. And we had relatives in Multan, in Jhang, in Qatalpur, which is Khanewal ke Kareeb. Then we had, and our own paternal family was from the district of Okada. So we had a pan-Punjab childhood. And in the winters, we'd go for shikar. And so it was a childhood that was very rich with culture, traditions.
Swimming in culture and spirituality and traditions.
Traditions and learning. And so, therefore, the rootedness was so very present in my person that I never even thought that I would not go back and contribute to that life.
Amazing, amazing. I didn't know all of this thing, and I'm glad that you have enlightened me and to our audience, and especially our English-speaking second and third generation overseas Pakistanis. Then you met your worthy partner.
That's correct.
If not more definitely equally educated, intellectually stimulating, and a very famous journalist of Pakistani background, Najm Sethi. So I don't know, I've done a little bit of research on you. I never saw this question asked. So when was the Cupid first time came to your life?
Well,
when did the Cupid hit?
I had heard about him because obviously he'd had a very compelling and I would say brave, illustrious career also as an activist. Because he was educated at Cambridge University also. He's an economist by training and he did really, really well here. And he'd begun his PhD at Cambridge University. And then I think that he was drawn to the struggle of the Baloch people.
Yes. In 1980s, I suppose.
I think that was the late 70s.
Late 70s, yes, that's right.
In fact, it was the early 70s.
Okay.
It's just after Bangladesh had happened.
Yes.
And I remember him telling me this. He said that he was so traumatized by the creation of Bangladesh and the secession of East Pakistan that he felt that people from the Punjab had to help the Baloch so that they could stay within Pakistan, so that they too would not have those secessionist tendencies. So inspired by that desire, and obviously also inspired by the desire of, rights for the people and their desire for autonomous self-realization. So he and some of his other friends from Cambridge University became part of that movement. And then, of course, they were arrested and he spent 2 years in jail, and it was a very difficult
jail
time.
Was it? Or
no, I think it was Hyderabad jail. But for 1 year, he was a disappeared person. And then for another year, he was
missing person.
He was a missing person, and that was a very traumatic time for him and his family. I didn't know him at that time, of course. I was much too young. And then for another year, he was in Hyderabad jail. And the Hyderabad conspiracy case was then unfolding. And his prison...
Faiz Ahmed Faiz?
No, Faiz was not there. Habib Jalib was
Habib Jalib,
in it.
yes.
Khan Abdul Wali Khan was also his prison mate, as was Sardar Ataullah Mengal and Nawab Khair Bakhsh Madi. They were all in the same jail as him, in the same barracks. And he knew them very well. Kaswar Gardezi Saab bhi the Multan ke. And he was very fond of all of them. And they were very fond of him because I subsequently met all of them. But so I'd heard about him. Because obviously our family was very political also. My cousins were in politics, my elders were in politics. But they were in parliamentary politics, the usual kind of regular politics. But they did have a huge amount of respect for these great Sardars and these people who were striving for autonomy for their people and for the rights of their people. So Najm and his friends had been part of that struggle. So I'd heard about him. But I actually met him properly when I was doing the bar here in London, and he was going to...
He was your senior in Cambridge.
Yes, he's a decade older than me.
Yes.
So we met in London while I was doing the bar.
Just a casual meeting, right?
A casual meeting, yes. But I had met him before in Lahore. A couple of times I'd met him in Lahore before. and I'd been very interested in his mind and in his motivation.
He's a very handsome man, I'm sure.
In his
Still
mind,
is, and at that time he was absolutely a dashing personality.
in his motivation, in his mind, in his idealism. I was very captivated by that, obviously. But then when we met and we had an opportunity to see each other over a period of months, I was able to explore his personality as well. And I think I found that, my desire to live in my own country with a man who could let me live my own life, who would not foist his own views on me, who would let me be myself, who would not suppress or repress my desire to be an activist, desire to work for the various things that I was interested in, to keep my name, to keep my identity, to keep my personality. I found all that in him. And
so the alignment of your values, your ideas and ideals, and of course your politically and social journey, everything kind of coincided.
I was very lucky to have met him at the time that I did. I was very, very lucky to have met him.
And you are from a Sayyid, very much a revered family, and Najam Sethi Sahib is
from a Sheikh family.
Yeah, Sheikh family. So was there any kind of taboos there?
Oh, Dr. Sahib, it was a very difficult task. It was a very difficult, task to convince my family that I wanted to marry him and that he was the only one for me. And of course they resisted. Yeah. But eventually they came around. But it took a lot of time. And it was quite a trial for both of us.
Yes.
And it tried our feelings for each other, it tested our feelings for each other. And in a way, in hindsight, I'm very glad it happened because we were able to really value each other.
Test your love for each other.
Yes, and value each other.
So how long have you been married now?
We have been married now for 42 years.
That's a long time,
yes,
right? That
yes.
is a great test
touch
of
wood,
time.
Yes,
touch
wood, Doctor.
Excellent,
yes.
mashallah. As we say, excellent. So I'm sure one day I would like to have interview of both of you together. And,
why not?
It will be much more electrifying, I suppose. Well, so then your political journey probably shaped a little bit more impetus, giving impetus to one another, because then you had your own ideas which almost mirrored Najam Sethi Sahib, and then you came into the actual politics. And was it with Benazir or after that, or is it Bhutto?
No, I did independent politics. Okay. And as I told you, I was organically drawn to politics. And I was offered party tickets a couple of times, but I just didn't feel that I would be comfortable with that. Because I had reservations about how the parties had developed. I had reservations about their relationship with the state. I realized that they were in a very difficult situation vis-a-vis the state. The compromises that they had made. The compromises they'd made to stay in power, to continue to survive the opposition periods. Ziaul Haq had introduced big money into politics for the first time in Pakistan's history. And corruption then became a way of life for
especially in politics,
in electoral politics in Pakistan. That was it dismayed me. And it turned my stomach really to think of these high ideals come to this. But as Benazir Bhutto Shaheed once said to me, she said, Ziaul Haq introduced big money into politics. I was up against all these tycoons and these people, generals' sons, etc., who had made huge amounts of money during the Afghan war, which the Americans had financed in the 1980s.
1979.
In the 1980s,
yeah.
And she said that, we, as the People's Party at that time, she said, we were so bereft. We didn't have any of their resources or anything like that. And then she said some of our people naturally turned to feathering their nests so that they could then survive the opposition periods. And, that's a very, very sad indictment.
Survival of the fittest.
It's a very sad indictment of a political system and a political process.
Yes. I just quickly moving forward, I think it was 1990 when your husband, Najam Sethi Sahib, was arrested by the then government of Nawaz Sharif. Is that right?
That was 1999.
1999.
He was
sorry.
first arrested by General Zia, but first
But,
after
yes.
his Hyderabad
Yes.
experience, when I didn't know him,
Yeah.
and when we married in 1983. After that, in 1985, he was arrested by General Ziaul Haq
Yes.
for his pro-democracy work. At that time, he had published a book called The American Role in Pakistan. And as you know, Dr. Saab, we have been the victims of white colonialism across South Asia, Africa, Latin America, all parts of the world. And as you know, the Second World War, so-called the Second World War, post-Second World War order, that the Allies, excluding Russia, Russia had helped them, the Soviet Union had helped them win the war against Hitler. But they immediately jettisoned the Soviet Union, and they made an alliance, which was the transatlantic alliance between Europe and the United States, basically. And they put in place an order, which was the post-Second World War order, which benefited all of them enormously. America, Britain, and the EU. At that time, it was Europe.
I call it 3 Ws: white, Western, wealthy, Caucasian.
Exactly.
Basically.
So
Yeah.
this order was made to benefit them. And now when that Second World War order is breaking down, they're bemoaning its loss. And they're talking about what a time of peace and plenty these 80 years have been. I'm sorry to say it hasn't been. For the rest of the world,
Only for the worthy ones,
only
the
for
chosen
them.
ones.
For the
yes.
rest of the world, it was hell on earth.
Yes.
For Africans, for people like us in South Asia, for the people in East India, for the pan-Arab world, it was hell, absolute hell. And Latin America, I mean, dictatorship after dictatorship that Pax Americana not only facilitated, implanted, but also then kept in place.
Perpetuated,
Kept in place at the
shackles,
cost
yeah.
of the people, at the cost of their desire for liberty and for prosperity. All this was kept in place. So now the Americans are getting a taste of their own medicine.
Yes.
And they feel that their democracy is under threat. Well, welcome to the real world.
The real world. So just moving back in 1999, that must have been a very difficult time for you
Yes.
internally.
So 84 was a very difficult time
yes,
also.
Yes.
When
Soon after your marriage, actually.
Yes,
that,
absolutely.
Yes. And that was, as you earlier said, the darkest time for Pakistan. And people who don't know the martial law history, that was probably the worst martial law until perhaps now, what is happening now. And I'll come to that in a minute. So that actually bound you together, it appears to me, that all of those challenges of life, and because, of course, being the wife of one of the finest intellectual and activists at that time for the freedom of opinion and free speech, you must have been under pressure, and you have family business to run and all that. So how did you survive that onslaught?
It was a very difficult time. It was indeed a very, very difficult time. But as you say, struggles bind you. If they don't kill you, they make you stronger.
Yes,
they bind you together. He was in prison. Obviously, I had to lead the fight for his release. I was enormously helped at that time, I must say, by colleagues in Pakistan and outside of Pakistan. Journalists everywhere in the world. Our colleagues in India, our colleagues in the UK, our colleagues in the US, they were of enormous help to me. And at that time, the Clinton administration, I have to say it was Bill Clinton's presidency, and the First Lady at the time was Hillary Clinton. They were of enormous help to us at the time. And this is when, of course, they were propagating democracy and freedoms, etc., because it was the Berlin Wall had fallen, and the Afghan Jihad had wrapped up, and they were exporting their message of democracy and human rights at that time all over the world. Of course, with their own agendas, but they were of enormous help to me at that time. And the Supreme Court of Pakistan then took a stand and said that you have not been able to bring any charges against Najam Sethi, and we release him with honor. And so he came home, and we became the recipients of many international awards after that. Amnesty International, the World Association of Newspapers, the Committee to Protect Journalists, New York. And then when Benazir Bhutto returned to power, she awarded both of us with the highest civilian awards in Pakistan as well. And we're very grateful to Shaheed Bibi for that. Our lawyer was the great late Asma Jahangir. I must say, at that time, General Musharraf was the Chief of Army Staff, and the then Prime Minister, Mian Nawaz Sharif, had put up a kind of a request to him to join in the investigation and bring Sethi Saab to trial at the time, but Musharraf resisted, and he said he's a civilian and we can't get involved with this. And I have to say to Nawaz Sharif's credit also that after that episode, you know that Musharraf came to power and Nawaz Sharif then went into prison and then went into exile.
Yeah.
When he returned to London in the early 2000s, I think this was 2004-05, we happened to be in London at the same time, Najam and I. And Mian Nawaz Sharif sent a message to us and
So
said,
rapprochement there, basically.
he said, I would like to see the two of you. So we met with him and his wife, and he and Najam and I met, the four of us met. And, there was some kind of very frank discussion between Najam and Mian Nawaz Sharif. I, of course, also contributed my 2 bits when I was asked. But Nawaz Sharif was very regretful of that incident. And he said that I feel that democracy needs to flourish, freedom of expression and freedom of speech, all the things that you fight for. I now find myself also being a victim of those who are denying me those rights. And therefore, I am very, very sorry that happened, that episode happened. And I have come to believe in the very things that you believe in and that you strive for. So since then, we've had a kind of cordial and warm relationship with Mian Nawaz Sharif.
Well, that's very magnanimous of Nawaz Sharif, I must say, and that's how.
And also magnanimous of Najam Sethi.
Of Najam Sethi too. By default, being a very strong leftist voice, a voice of progress and democracy, you are supposed to be magnanimous because you understand the human follies.
Correct.
And you. But life is
and,
such.
And if I may, sorry to interrupt, but Najam has always felt, and I became convinced of the rightness of what he was saying, that you always have to compromise, you always have to give the other person an opportunity.
Yes.
You have to correct your own course, and you have to give the other party an opportunity to correct course as well.
Yeah, because political difference.
And that is how progress happens.
Yeah.
That is how progress happens, and that is the essence of politics.
Yes.
That is the essence of politics.
That's right. So political difference can't be a family
can't
vendetta.
Carry it as a cross and forever, and it can't become a vendetta.
Yeah.
You have to be reasonable about it.
Jugnu, you're a font of knowledge, experience, and of course wisdom. There's so much to really talk about, really. And but I am short of time, so I'll just focus on a couple of points. One would be, at the end of the interview, would be your illustrious progeny, your son and daughter. But before that, I just want to dive quickly into your recent political activities, especially with Imran Khan and vis-a-vis rise and fall of Imran Khan and the current situation, political situation. So that how did you, because there was time that you were quite critical of Imran Khan, then you joined his party.
I have never joined his party.
Oh, I see. But
I never did.
Okay.
No, I was elected as an independent in 2018.
Okay.
And at that time, I gave the PTI's chief minister my vote of confidence because I wanted to work for my constituents. Okay. It was the first time.
It was more like a regional political.
It was a regional political thing because I wanted to work for my constituents, and I wanted to provide the relief to them that they deserve. Because any country, Dr. Saab, is as successful as its people are. If the people's lifestyle and
you voted for that chief minister.
I voted for that chief minister. At that time, Mr. Buzdar was an unknown entity.
Yes.
And he hadn't exposed himself.
And you had no knowledge of him.
I have no knowledge of
that,
who he was. And I was in fact rather glad that it wasn't one of the old houses of the tried and tested people, the feudals of the Punjab. And it was somebody who was new and fresh and wasn't from a rich family. So I thought, well, maybe we can, but I was mistaken. He himself was just a figurehead at the end of the day. And there were other people who were running him. But I have to tell you that my experience with the PTI in the Punjab Assembly was a most underwhelming experience. Some experiences are overwhelming. This was an underwhelming experience. Because the party and the government was all at sea. Nobody knew where the orders were coming from. They were coming partly from the junta sitting in GHQ, partly from Banigala from Khansa, partly from his wife, who was dabbling in all sorts of string pulling behind the scenes. And she had her own kind of fixtures who were operating from behind a curtain, as we've now subsequently everybody's discovered that. And the PTI's policies were also helter-skelter. There was no development as such properly. And it was a very, very disappointing time for me. I have long felt, because I've known Imran Khan personally, you know, we've known the families, we are old Lahori families, we've grown up together. His sisters and I were at school together. He was at school at HSN with my cousins. He was friends with my family. Najam was friends with him as well. So we've known them and interacted socially quite a lot with him. And I believe that personally he was not corrupt, that he, in fact, was viscerally opposed to corruption. But for some reason, he became embroiled in a group of people who then, you know, pillaged the country, destroyed the PTI's goodwill, destroyed Imran Khan's own goodwill. And they were highly corrupt people, and I saw them at work in the Punjab at first sight. I mean, saw them there operating right there in front of me. And I'm sorry to say this, but I feel that his wife, his third wife, who is also a great inspiration to him, I don't know why, but she was a very, very powerful person in the Punjab government of the time. She was pulling Mr. Burda's strings, who was the chief minister at the time, from behind the scenes. And a lot of the kind of malgovernance and corruption that took place in that time, I think can be traced back to her and her coterie. And then, of course, other people felt emboldened to do their own thing when this was not being stopped by Banigala and not being stopped by Imran Khan. So whilst he was persecuting his opponents for corruption, his own party was indulging in the same sort of
healer, heal thyself.
Healer, heal thyself. Quite right.
It's a pity because, as you know, Imran Khan, as you rightly so, is not a corrupt person.
Well, he wasn't at the time. He wasn't at the time personally, I felt. But then when you allow it, and you allow it in your home, and you allow it in your inner circle, then what do you say? How can you then say?
I would take it in this way, being overseas Pakistanis and one of the sufferer of so many millions of people who had to leave the country because of the political turmoil and lack of opportunities and lack of meritocracy.
Quite right.
My take will be this, that it is a loss to Pakistan that somebody like Imran Khan's stature got embroiled into such kind of a domestic issues, and that the nation could not benefit from somebody like him. And not only that, and I'll come to that in a minute, that is a head-on collision with the all-encompassing and all-powerful, omnipotent Pakistani army. And that is basically a great loss to a nascent society. And that is where the rapprochement has to come, and probably for that we will have another...
But don't forget, Dr. Saab, that it was this very military establishment that brought him to power in 2018. I took part in that election. Let me tell you that, and during that election, they were on the side of Imran Khan and they denied Nawaz Sharif his victory and they made him Prime Minister. And General Bajwa and General Faiz were very much behind the Imran Khan project.
So it is the Pakistan army throughout just playing like these political somersault of all of the
I
politicians.
believe that Pakistan was at a crossroads in 2018. If they had not interfered at the time and let it organically develop. You see, there had been 2 peaceful transfers of power. The media was coming into its own. The judiciary was coming into its own. So if they had let that organic process be, things might not have been as bad as they are today.
Yeah, I think I'll probably agree on it. But for that, we will have another program, and it has been fascinating so far, I must say.
I would like to say one thing, though, that I have my differences with the way The government was run from 2018 to 2022. But I will say one thing, that Imran is a brave prisoner of conscience in Pakistan today, that he has never asked for mercy and to be let out of prison. He has to be respected for that. He has to be respected for the courage with which he is facing his imprisonment. I'd
And
like
you
to say
don't
that.
believe he needs to be in the prison?
Well, I believe that he must, as we just spoke, we just spoke about the kind of some kind of give that you have to have in if you are in politics. You cannot be as rigid as he is at the moment. I know that he has his principles and his points of view from which he feels that if he diverges, he will lose his support and his backing. But his support and his backing also needs him to be politically savvy, to compromise on some things that on which he can compromise, and to stay in the game. That is something that he needs to do. So he
Yeah,
needs to think about that in a positive manner.
you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I think. Imran Khan, illustrious and incorruptible politician amongst many, as he is, I don't think that he is going to change his stripes. And that is unfortunate for Pakistan. And just one more question, then we'll move on to your more kind of a family. The last 2.5 years after the ousting of Imran Khan's government, the unheard and unseen atrocities on Pakistani people and PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf of Imran Khan's party, especially against families and women, this is absolutely despicable and shameful. And you being a woman activist and an enlightened person, what do you say to this? And I'm sure you must have contact with the deep state, Pakistan military. What do you tell them? What's happening?
Well, I'd first like to say this to you, Dr. Saab, and to your viewers, that this is not the first time this has happened in Pakistan. The unfortunate thing is that many PTI supporters who belong to the upper echelons of society, the upper middle classes, the middle classes, etc., think that this is the first time that's happening in Pakistan. It's been happening since its creation in 1947.
That's true.
Women have been persecuted, they have been prosecuted, they have been imprisoned. Many women have been disappeared as well through these decades. Okay, so this is not the first time. Let's just make that clear.
Yes.
It's not the first time it's happening in Pakistan. Okay, we have been critics, hopefully, of all those dark periods in Pakistan's history, and will continue to be for as long as we can be. I believe that every person deserves due process, has rights as citizens, and deserves due process and proper, their rights to be observed properly, and people can't be disappeared for no reason. It's not just the PTI. People are suffering in other provinces as well of Pakistan. Nobody talks about that. The PTI should be talking about that as well, right? Not just about their own persecution. I believe that there are people who really deserve to be given an opportunity to come out into the world and live their lives the way they want to be part of the political process. There are many people who I remember from the Punjab Assembly who can be very productive citizens of the state. And people like Yasmin Rashid, I'd like to mention. Dr. Yasmin Rashid, she was my colleague in the Punjab Assembly. I think she's a very capable lady. I think she was not corrupt. I think she's a brave lady, not just because she's suffering for her principles, but because she's a cancer survivor. And she's an elderly lady. People like her do deserve to be set free and to be able to return to their families. And there are many others like that.
Yeah, so no, you're right. The persecution of people throughout the history of Pakistan, or for that matter, any country, has always been the Bengalis in 1950s, and then in 1971, Balochistan, we see our brothers and sisters in Balochistan are suffering. So, and somehow the telltale signs, they always go back to the Pakistan military, and I think they need to have a deep thinking about it. But just one comment I'll make. The magnitude and the girth and breadth of these atrocities against the females and the families that we've seen in this time and age where there was a media. It was happening in 1977 in Ziaul Haq draconian martial law. It was people were flagged openly.
It was,
but
people were flogged openly.
yeah.
It was happening in Bangladesh against women
and women.
during the war, if you recall.
But here now we see 2022, 3, 4, 5. This has done so much of a damage to the reputation of Pakistan with the brain drain, and even people like yourself, thinking of leaving Pakistan. And that is unheard of. And that is where I want our deep state to think about it and to see that how in order to score a political victory, how it affects the Pakistan and Pakistanis. With that, I'll move on to my last question, and you've been very patient, thank you, and I would request you to come again for another interview so that we could go a little bit more detail. Your illustrious heritage, again say, it goes from generation to you and Najam Sethi Sahib, and then to your children. And both of them have, mashallah, been doing very, very well. So just tell our audience a little bit about them, and then we'll conclude the interview with your last message to this camera, to the Pakistani women.
Well, I would say this to you, that you have to encourage your children to let them be who they are. You must encourage their artistic and creative sensibilities, as well as their sportsmanly facilities and their ability to explore where their mind is taking them. I think an education in science is absolutely essential. This is one thing that I missed, and I really regret not having encouraged my children to be more and more aware of science and scientific developments. I wish that I had encouraged them more to be scientifically inclined as well as artistically inclined, which they are. And the basic message is this: let them be who they are, encourage them, nourish them, nurture them.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's a very good message of hope. And thank you for giving these pearls of wisdom to our audience. And we'll meet again.
Thank you.
So, dear audience, thank you very much for watching this almost a marathon of an interview with an unsuspecting Jugnu Mohsin, impromptu. And I'm glad that we learned so much about Jugnu's life, her family background. And I hope that you are as thrilled and fascinated by a very candid account as I am today. And I'm really honored to have Jugnu Mohsin here. So please keep watching Quews.news. I am Sohail Qureshi from our London studios with my program Sharp Edge. And goodbye from us.